People say blood is thicker than water. For most of my life, I believed those words without question. I believed that no matter what happened, family would always stand beside you. I believed that my younger brother would never give me a reason to doubt him. Before we continue, if you enjoy powerful, emotional stories with meaningful life lessons, make sure you subscribe to True Life Voices. We'd also love to know where you're watching from, so tell us in the comments below. Your support helps us bring you more unforgettable stories. Now let's begin. My name is Daniel. I'm 34 years old now, but this story really began many years ago in a quiet little town where my younger brother Michael and I grew up together. Our neighborhood wasn't wealthy. We didn't have a big house or expensive toys. What we had was each other. As children, Michael followed me everywhere. If I climbed a tree, he wanted to climb it too. If I played soccer with the neighborhood kids, he wanted to be on my team. Whenever he got scared, he would run straight to me because he believed I could fix anything. Back then, I thought I always would. Then everything changed. Our father passed away unexpectedly. One day we were a normal family. The next, our entire world had fallen apart. I still remember standing at his funeral, looking at my little brother trying so hard not to cry. He kept asking when Dad was coming home. No one had the heart to answer him. That was the day I silently made a promise to myself. No matter what happened, I would protect Michael. I would make sure he never felt alone. I wasn't just going to be his older brother anymore. I was going to become the person our father could no longer be. I was only 22 years old when life forced me to grow up much faster than I expected. I had been studying in college and dreaming about becoming an engineer. Like every young man, I had plans. I wanted to graduate, build a career, travel, start a family one day. But those dreams had to wait. Our mother was doing everything she could to keep us afloat, but the bills kept coming. Rent had to be paid. Food had to be bought. Michael still had years of school ahead of him. Someone had to make sacrifices. That someone became me. I left college and accepted a full-time warehouse job. It wasn't glamorous. Every day I lifted heavy boxes, loaded trucks, and worked until my muscles ached. Some weeks I worked double shifts. Other weeks I barely had enough energy to get out of bed. There were nights when I got home after midnight only to wake up again before sunrise. Sometimes I slept for only 3 or 4 hours before doing it all over again. My friends kept moving forward with their lives. They graduated, started careers, shared vacation photos online, bought new cars. Meanwhile, I spent my 20s counting every dollar just to make sure my family survived. People often asked why I worked so hard. I always smiled and gave the same answer. My little brother has a future. That answer was enough for me. Every paycheck already had a destination before it even reached my bank account. Rent, groceries, electricity, medicine for our mother, Michael's tuition, his books, transportation. There was never much left for me. I wore the same boots for years. I postponed buying new clothes. I skipped meals more times than I can count because I'd rather Michael never worry about whether there would be dinner waiting for him. I never wanted him to carry the burdens I carried. I wanted him to dream bigger than I ever could. Michael was incredibly intelligent. He worked hard in school and I couldn't have been prouder. When he told me he'd been accepted into a better university, I saw excitement in his eyes that I hadn't seen since we were children. Then his smile slowly faded. He looked down at the acceptance letter. "I don't think we can afford this," he said quietly. I took the letter from his hands. "You'll go," I told him. "But the tuition? I'll figure it out." A week later I walked into the bank and signed loan papers in my own name. The monthly payments terrified me. The interest rates weren't kind. But watching Michael walk onto that university campus for the first time made every signature worthwhile. When he thanked me, I simply smiled. "You don't owe me anything," I told him. "Just focus on your future." His eyes filled with tears. "I'll never forget this," he promised. "I'll spend the rest of my life making you proud." I believed him. Every single word. Years passed. Slowly, life began rewarding all those years of sacrifice. With the little money I managed to save, I started taking on small construction jobs during weekends. Repairing fences, painting houses, building decks, replacing roofs. The jobs were small at first, but I treated every customer with honesty. If I promised to arrive at 8, I arrived at 7:30. If I found a cheaper way to solve someone's problem, I told them instead of charging more. Word spread. One satisfied customer recommended another, then another. Soon I had enough work to leave the warehouse behind. It wasn't easy. There were months when I wondered if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. But little by little, the business grew. Eventually, I opened my own small construction company. It wasn't the biggest company in town. It It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt hopeful. I even managed to buy a modest house. Nothing extravagant. Just a comfortable place where our family could finally breathe without worrying about the next bill. When Michael graduated from university, there wasn't a single doubt in my mind about what came next. I offered him a position in the company immediately. He accepted with excitement. I didn't simply hire him as an employee. I made him my business partner. I trusted him completely. He handled the company's financial records. He organized invoices, managed payroll, reviewed contracts. Eventually, he had access to every company account. Some people warned me not to mix family with business. I laughed every time. He's my brother, I would say. If I can't trust him, who can I trust? Looking back now, I wish someone had convinced me to be more careful. Our company continued growing. Employees respected us. Clients appreciated our honesty. People constantly complimented the relationship Michael and I shared. You two make a great team. I wish my brother and I got along like that. You're lucky to have each other. Those words always made me smile, because I truly believed I was one of the luckiest people alive. I had survived loss, built a business, given my brother the future I always wanted for him. And somehow, life finally seemed to be rewarding all those years of sacrifice. Then our mother became seriously ill. The diagnosis shocked all of us. Hospital visits became part of our weekly routine. Michael and I rarely missed an appointment. One afternoon, we stood beside her hospital bed holding her hands. Our mother looked at both of us with tired but loving eyes. "You boys only have each other," she whispered. "Promise me you'll always stay together." Michael looked directly into my eyes. He smiled. "We'll always stick together," he said confidently. "No matter what." I smiled back. "I promise." I believed every word that came out of his mouth. I trusted him more than I trusted anyone else in this world. What I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly imagine, was that while I was planning our future together, Michael had already started planning a future without me. And by the time I finally discovered the truth, it would already be far too late. It started with a phone call. At first, it seemed like any other business call. I had no idea that by the time I hung up, my entire life would begin to fall apart. That morning started like every other morning. I arrived at the office early, poured myself a cup of coffee, and began reviewing construction schedules for the week. Several projects were moving ahead smoothly. Employees were arriving one by one. Clients had meetings scheduled throughout the day. Everything felt normal. Then my phone rang. The caller ID showed the name of our bank. I answered without thinking twice. "Good morning, Daniel speaking." The bank manager greeted me politely before asking a question that instantly caught my attention. "Mr. Daniel, we're calling to confirm that you personally authorized several large transfers from your company's account." For a moment I actually laughed. There must be some kind of mistake. The manager became quiet. "I'm afraid there isn't." He slowly listed several transactions. Each one involved an enormous amount of money. Thousands of dollars. Then tens of thousands. Then even more. Every amount sounded impossible. I quickly opened my laptop. "There has to be an error," I kept repeating. "There isn't." The manager explained that the transfers had occurred over several months. Not days. Months. No alarms had been triggered because every transfer had been properly authorized using company credentials. I thanked him for calling and ended the conversation. For several seconds, I simply stared at my computer screen. Nothing felt real. My heart was racing. I logged into our financial system. One transaction. Then another. Then another. Each one matched exactly what the bank manager had described. Over the previous 6 months, hundreds of thousands of dollars had quietly disappeared. Money I had worked years to earn. Money that belonged to the company. Money that paid our workers. Money that kept our projects alive. At first, I convinced myself we had been hacked. That explanation felt easier to accept. I immediately contacted our IT department. They checked the system. No signs of unauthorized access. No security breach. Everything pointed somewhere else. With growing anxiety, I opened the authorization records. Every transfer had been approved using Michael's company credentials. I stared at his name. Again. And again. And again. My mind refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. There had to be another explanation. Someone must have stolen his login information. Someone must have framed him. Michael would never do this. Not Michael. Not after everything we'd been through together. Not after everything I had sacrificed for him. I felt my hands begin to shake. My breathing became shallow. I grabbed my phone and called him immediately. Rang. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Again. Nothing. I sent a message. No reply. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Still nothing. By that afternoon I couldn't sit still anymore. I drove straight to his apartment. The entire drive I kept creating excuses for him. Maybe his phone battery had died. Maybe he was meeting a client. Maybe he was sick. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation for everything. I parked outside his building and hurried upstairs. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder. Still nothing. I called his phone while standing outside the door. Silence. The apartment remained completely still. Eventually an elderly neighbor opened her door and looked at me sympathetically. "Are you looking for Michael?" she asked. I nodded. She hesitated before speaking. "I haven't seen him in several days." Several days. The words echoed in my head. Several days. She explained that moving trucks had arrived earlier that week. She assumed he was relocating. Nobody had mentioned anything to me. I thanked her quietly and walked back to my car. For the first time, fear began replacing confusion. The next morning I rushed into our office before anyone else arrived. The moment I opened the finance department, something felt wrong. Filing cabinets were open. Important contract folders were missing. Several shelves looked strangely empty. I searched every office, every cabinet, every storage room. Nothing. Company laptops had disappeared. Client files had been copied. Confidential business information was gone. The realization struck harder with every passing minute. This wasn't random theft. Someone knew exactly what they were looking for. Someone with complete access. Then my lawyer called. His voice sounded unusually serious. "Daniel, there's something you need to know." I sat down immediately. He explained that several legal documents had recently become public. Months earlier, without telling me, Michael had registered a brand new construction company. He hadn't done it recently. He had planned it while we were still working together. While I trusted him completely, he had quietly been building something behind my back. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then the lawyer continued. Michael had contacted many of our biggest clients. He offered them lower prices, promised faster completion times, presented himself as the better choice. Several of them had already signed contracts with him. Contracts that should have belonged to our company. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath my feet. Everything around me became strangely quiet. The office, the phones, the conversations outside. It all faded away. The brother I had sacrificed everything for hadn't simply stolen money. He had stolen years of my life. He had stolen my business. He had stolen my future. He had stolen dreams I had spent over a decade building. Within only a few weeks, everything collapsed. Without enough money, we couldn't keep projects moving. Employees who had worked beside me for years gathered in the office one afternoon. Some had mortgages. Others had young children. A few had worked with me since I started the company. Looking into their faces was one of the hardest moments of my life. With tears in my eyes, I told them the truth. There wasn't enough money left to keep everyone employed. One by one they packed their tools. Some hugged me before leaving. Others quietly thanked me for always treating them fairly. Watching them walk away felt like watching my family disappear. Suppliers began calling every day. Invoices piled higher on my desk. Banks demanded immediate repayment of outstanding loans. Every phone call brought another problem. Every letter brought another bill. Eventually, I had no choice. I sold my house. The same house I had dreamed of owning. The house that represented years of sacrifice. I stood outside with a small box of personal belongings as strangers prepared to move in. Losing the house hurt. But surprisingly, that wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was walking into my mother's hospital room. She smiled when she saw me. Then she immediately noticed something was wrong. I pulled up a chair beside her bed. Slowly, I explained everything. The missing money. The missing company. The missing brother. She listened without interrupting. Tears slowly filled her eyes. Finally she whispered something I'll never forget. "I never imagined my sons would end up like this." I couldn't answer. There simply weren't any words. Deep down, despite everything, I still hoped Michael would suddenly walk through the hospital door. I wanted him to tell me there had been some terrible misunderstanding. That someone else was responsible. That my little brother was still the person I believed he was. Days passed. Then weeks. He never came. Then one evening, my phone vibrated. It was a message. From Michael. For a brief second, I felt relief. Maybe this was finally the explanation I'd been waiting for. Instead, I read 12 words that shattered whatever hope I still had. I did what I had to do. Don't try to find me. I read the message again. Then again. My hands trembled. My vision blurred with tears. In that single moment, I realized something that hurt even more than losing the money. I hadn't just lost my business. I had lost my brother. Or perhaps, the brother I thought I knew had never really existed at all. There were days when I didn't want to get out of bed. Every morning the memories came rushing back. The promises, the sacrifices, the laughter we shared, the dreams we built together. Every conversation replayed itself in my mind like an old movie I couldn't turn off. I kept asking myself the same question. What did I miss? Were there signs? Could I have stopped any of this? The guilt was exhausting. The betrayal was even worse. For months, anger became my closest companion. I imagined confronting Michael. I imagined demanding answers. I imagined making him feel the same pain he had caused me. There were nights when I couldn't sleep because my mind was filled with thoughts of revenge. I wanted justice. I wanted him to understand exactly what he had taken from me. Not just my money. Not just my company. He had stolen years of sacrifice. He had destroyed the future I had spent more than a decade building. But one morning something changed. I looked at myself in the mirror. The man staring back at me looked tired. Older. Broken. I realized something important. Michael had already taken enough from me. If I allowed hatred to consume the rest of my life, then he would still be winning. Revenge wasn't going to rebuild my company. It wasn't going to bring back my employees. It wasn't going to heal my mother's broken heart. It certainly wasn't going to give me peace. So I made a decision. A difficult one. I decided to begin again. Not because it was easy. Because it was necessary. The first opportunity came from someone I least expected. A neighbor asked if I could repair a damaged wooden fence. Years ago, I would have considered it a tiny job. Now, it was everything. I arrived early. Measured every board carefully. Worked with the same dedication I had always believed in. When I finished, the homeowner smiled. This is excellent work. A few days later, he recommended me to one of his friends. That friend recommended me to another family. Soon my phone started ringing again. Not because I had the biggest company. Not because I offered the cheapest prices. People called because someone they trusted had recommended me. They trusted my work. More importantly, they trusted my character. Little by little, life began moving forward. One fence became two. Two became five. Five became kitchen renovations. Then roofing projects. Then full home renovations. Eventually, construction projects returned. The business grew slowly. This time I wasn't in a hurry. I remembered every mistake I had made before. I handled every financial decision personally. Every payment. Every contract. Every invoice. Not because I refused to trust people, but because I had learned that trust should be earned, not simply given. I also surrounded myself with people who shared the same values. Honesty. Hard work. Integrity. They weren't just employees. They became a team. A family built on respect instead of blind trust. 3 years passed. One sunny morning, I stood outside my rebuilt construction company. It wasn't as large as the first business. The office was smaller. The staff was smaller. The projects were smaller. But something about it felt much stronger. Everything standing before me had been built from the ground up. Twice. No shortcuts. No lies. No betrayal. Just hard work. One afternoon, while reviewing project schedules, my phone rang. The caller was someone I hadn't spoken to in a long time. After exchanging greetings, he took a deep breath before speaking. Daniel, I thought you should know. I listened quietly. Michael has been arrested. For several seconds. I said nothing. His new company had collapsed. Authorities had uncovered serious financial fraud. Several investigations had been launched. Investors had lost money. Employees had lost their jobs. His entire business had fallen apart. Then came the sentence I never expected to hear. He wants to see you. After the call ended, I sat alone in my office. The room was completely silent. I looked out the window for a long time. Old memories flooded back. The little boy who followed me everywhere. The teenager I protected after our father died. The young man I worked endless nights to support. The brother who promised he would never forget my sacrifices. Then I remembered everything else. The empty apartment. The missing money. The workers who lost their jobs. Our mother's tears. The message that shattered my heart. I thought carefully before making my decision. Hours passed. Finally, I decided not to go. Not because I hated him. Hatred had already stolen too many years from my life. I didn't go because I had finally understood something many people never do. Forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. You can forgive someone without allowing them back into your life. You can let go of bitterness without reopening a door that should remain closed. Some relationships simply cannot return to what they once were. And that's okay. Months later, I heard that Michael had accepted responsibility for his actions. For the first time in years, he stopped blaming everyone else. He admitted the choices had been his alone. When I heard that, I quietly wished him well. Not because he deserved another chance from me, but because I genuinely hoped he would become a better person. Life is too short to spend every day carrying anger. The person who benefits most from forgiveness is often the one doing the forgiving. Today, people sometimes ask me how I managed to rebuild my life after losing almost everything. I always give them the same answer. Money can be stolen. Businesses can fail. Dreams can fall apart. People you love can disappoint you. But integrity, resilience, faith, character, and the courage to begin again, those are things no one can ever steal from you. Looking back now, I realize something that once seemed impossible. Michael didn't define my future. His betrayal became part of my story. It did not become the ending of my story. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't getting revenge. Sometimes it isn't watching someone else fail. Sometimes the greatest victory is quietly rebuilding your own life until the pain no longer controls you. And that's exactly what I chose to do. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to True Life Voices, and turn on notifications so you never miss another emotional story filled with powerful life lessons. Now we'd love to hear from you. If you were in Daniel's position, would you have visited Michael after everything he had done, or would you have made the same decision Daniel did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read as many comments as we can, and we'd love to hear your perspective. Until next time, take care of yourself, keep believing in new beginnings, and remember, sometimes life breaks your heart. Only so it can reveal just how strong you really